Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Mental Health Mondays. I am, of course, AA Ron, also known as Mind Runner. And my guest at this time, she is an established comedy writer that'll leave you in stitches. She is one of the coolest personalities on Twitter. Possibly followed by Elon, but definitely followed by Blockbuster. She has an esthetician, skincare for the midlife skin crisis. She has fabulous Twitter spaces that are full of random cool things. She has come out as bi-coastal, but not from North Carolina. Her last name means celebration. She is my guest at this time. If you're not following her on X Twitter, you need to right now for a good time. She is Amber Champagne. All right, welcome to the show, Amber.
Oh my gosh, that was the most amazing intro I think anybody has ever given me. That's going to be one of those things that I think about on my deathbed. Thank you.
Very well, yes, especially how I butchered ETHYST, which I try. I know amethyst and esthetician, and
yes,
just kind of combined it to the two, which amethyst is not my birthstone, but it's my favorite of the stones out there.
Yeah.
So it's my favorite of the gem ensemble. Purple's my favorite color. So very cool stuff. Very cool stuff. I'm so excited to have you here. You and I just randomly saw you on Twitter. I think a mutual friend retweeted you, and then we just popped into one of your first Twitter spaces. It was such a great chat. You are quickly becoming a media sensation. But again, such a cool hang. And one of the things I really love about your Twitter space hangs is the no politics zone. So I think that's fantastic. I mean, you seem to really be a source of positivity, something we desperately need in social media. And great to have you here.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with you. Honestly, I've been looking forward to this all week, so I'm excited to chat.
Same here. I feel like we're kindred spirits. I do feel like that social media sometimes gets a bad rap because we tend to see the negativity. You know, we see the trolls, and sometimes it's human nature to dunk on people, especially when you're hiding behind a screen. But you seem to be using Twitter, turning Twitter, at least Twitter X, whatever we're calling it now. You'll have to ask your friend Elon.
I know. I know. I'm trying to call it X as much as possible. I do slip up and say Twitter too, so trust me, you're not the only one.
I think everybody knows, though. If you say Twitter, they'll know. We're all going to still call it Twitter.
Yeah.
Right? It's not Trump Tower. It's still the Sears building or whatever that is. That nobody's going to change the name. At least he didn't call it guaranteedlowrate.com. One of those, sellout. When a stadium changes its name from the Wrigley Stadium to some random business website name, and you're like, come on.
I honestly could have seen him doing something like that, and I would have praised him for doing something like that. He's such a troll. I love it so much.
Yeah.
They trolls with kindness, right? I mean, that's the whole thing.
Trolls with kindness. And I think he's unnecessary. I think he's got FU money, but he also he doesn't, I don't think some people say he's bought by certain people here and there, but to me, I think he's got that FU money that he can do what he wants and he doesn't care. And that's what makes people mad is they can't get to him.
Yeah, I agree. I think Elon does what he wants. I think he says what he wants. I think he does what he wants. I think he's always going to do that. I think that's the most beautiful thing about him actually as a person is that he just does. I mean, it's anytime he drops any kind of anything about what's going to go on with something on X, it's everybody's up and, immediately oh my God, the world is ending. But it's just his nature, right? It's just his nature to throw stuff out there and just kind of make people talk. Have dialogue. And I think that's honestly really important. I think a lot of great things are going to come out from that perspective on X. I think X is truly, I know I say it all the time, and I think that people think I'm crazy, but I really, truly believe that platform is going to cause a paradigm shift in society and in humanity overall. there are so many people who don't even use that platform yet, who don't even know about it, right? They
Yeah.
don't know what's going on over there. And when it becomes quickly one of the best places to be, because it will. I mean, we're seeing the changes already, right? You're thinking about like we're talking they're moving. There's like a train moving,
Hmm.
which is their algorithm, right? And they're in there like tinkering with stuff and changing things like while it's going. And
Yeah.
and making big positive changes that sometimes do have negative consequences on other parts of the algo, and it's not really their fault. It's just kind of the way that it's working, right? Because otherwise they'd have to like shut it down and build it back up again.
Yeah.
um so it's like, but they're doing all of that, they're making all of these crazy things. There's already so many amazing features that you can use on there, like spaces,
Hmm.
like long form posting, different things that are happening. Lives are going to start getting more traction and whatnot, and then they have so much more that they want to add.
Yeah.
It's going to be a place that everybody's going to want to be on. The people who are on it now, I think, are going to, if they use it correctly and they're kind to other people and they're doing what they need to do from a positive perspective, they're going to be in a really good spot in another year or so.
Do you feel like it's kind of like what you get what you put into it? Like if you are looking to troll or be negative, that's what you're gonna find. But if you, because I've noticed like people have complained like, oh, it's full of hate and all this, and I said, like, I mute people that come in as a troll. I don't even block them. I just mute
Hmm.
because somehow if I block them, they can see I blocked them. They're like they hold it up like a scalp, like, oh, I got this guy to block me, which I
Yeah.
always think is silly too. It's like imagine translating Twitter to real life. If
Yeah.
you like, do you want to go around and say, I got Amber to block me? She doesn't want anything to do. She gave me a restraining order. I mean, what? I mean, it's like bragging, you know?
Yeah, and that
That,
and the funny thing that you're saying about that too is like I just put up a post yesterday, about like why do we look at X as if it's a void,
mhm.
when it really has the potential to cause a huge shift in society, right?
Yeah.
It will, and that's like the crazy thing is it's like when you're saying it's just like, oh, it's like in real life, it's like, look, X is going to become real life. People on X are already meeting one another
Hmm.
in real life, doing things like this where we're sitting here digitally right now, but still
Yeah.
I'm conversing with you in person, right? So it's like a lot of different things are coming from it. Connection and collaboration are going to end up being at an all-time high.
Hmm.
Creation is going to be inspiring from what we're going to see through all of this stuff. So it's like, so yeah, I mean, if it were me, I would 100% be treating my account just like I do right now, where I am kind to everybody. I don't interact with trolls. I don't even take the time to mute trolls, honestly.
Just move
I think,
on.
you know what,
Yeah.
if you want to write something nasty on a post that I put out, of all people, my goodness, you know what I mean? Like what your day is like, I don't know, because I can't even imagine. Just personally, I can't imagine going around and saying anything like that to anybody, anyways.
Hmm.
Um, but I couldn't imagine doing it to someone who just only posts positive stuff, only posts like funny, fun things, or like ways for people to talk to one
Like
another.
shame on you for being too positive.
I
Like
know,
I
seriously.
got
Like,
it says more about them though than you. It's like they're like she's positive. Ugh, I can't on Twitter. Ah,
I do,
yeah.
and I do think that it is like, going back to your first question, I do think that it is, you do get out of it what you put into it, and
Hmm.
not just necessarily in content, because of course, like even I'm putting all of these positive things out there, and like I just said, there are trolls that come and say something to me, just to try to get a rise on me, which, sorry guys, you will never get. So there's just that.
Not
It's not
happening. Not happening.
but like, so it's not just from that, but also from like, how you're growing your account, how you're building things. Like, it does take time, it does take effort. People who are building their accounts, I know a lot of people think, I mean, there's definitely some people who've had legacy accounts that have had tons of followers and engagement for a long period of time, right? So they're naturally going to get pushed out quicker because they've been there, they've been doing it. But again, you're looking at that whole timeline of like all of the work and effort and time they've put in to get to where they are.
Hmm.
It's the same thing with anybody building up their account now. I mean, the amount of time I spend on X is stupid, and it's like, and the amount of time that I dedicated, because I prioritize time to do that. I mean, I'm not just on X, although it may seem like
Yeah.
that sometimes.
You're
Um,
like,
you know,
hang on.
exactly. I'm like, I own a business.
Hmm.
That does really well. And is nationally selling like brand and whatnot. I do so many things outside. I write, You know what I mean? It's like I do so many things like constantly, but for me, I dedicate time and space to the things that I think are going to bring value to my life, that are going to, help me to continue progressing in life. And
Hmm.
I really do believe that about the app. So I dedicate time to it because I want to be there.
You came in too, didn't you? Kind of come in right here on the heels of Elon taking over, like that. Like you hadn't used Twitter before.
Yeah, so I had an account that was kind of dormant since 2012. I
Yeah,
I tried to the last time the world was ending. Anyway,
yeah. That's right. Yeah.
I tried to use it a couple times, but it's like you said, like when I Twitter 1.0 was very different. And so that's where it's like, I would encourage you, if you're listening to this and you're like, Twitter, like, who cares? It's a bunch of crap. It's actually not now. It's
Mhm.
very different than it once was. So when I first started trying to use Twitter, I could not understand it. I could not understand how you were supposed to engage with people. I mean, now that we see the algo like rolling out and like what's going on there, we also know why we couldn't talk to one another.
Yeah, yeah,
So, so there's that.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So I tried it a few times, but it never really worked out for me. I didn't really have much of anything on there. I wasn't really connected to anybody. It was pretty much starting at ground zero. And then in June, I hopped on after I was like, Elon's been doing hearing some things about like, oh, Elon's been doing some cool stuff like on X. Like, let me,
Hmm.
I think it was still Twitter at that point. Let me like jump on and see what's going on. And I quickly realized that I could connect with a lot of amazing people, and like you, like yourself, so many amazing people who I know. Let me just build it up.
Go on, go on. Go
So great. Let me tell you, how long do you have?
on.
Um, so but truly, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
just connecting with amazing people who are doing really cool things, like stuff like this, who are talking about mental health, which I think truly I do want to talk about, because I truly think it needs to be destigmatized. And and different, things that are actually bringing like progress and positive things to the world. So I quickly realized that. I started like spending more time there. I started dedicating certain time during my days to be on there. I do spaces on Mondays and Saturdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, and those are pretty consistent.
those are
Um,
can't miss spaces. By the way, we get into some deep rabbit holes. I
about-
have, by the way, I have made peace with my burrito issues, my trust
oh,
issues with burritos. You know,
I'm so
it's
glad.
the breakfast burritos that I prefer. You know,
I'm
now, so I'm.
I'm so glad. And you know what, Norwood, he really can do that. He really can like get into those semantics with you and
Oh,
change your mind on a lot. He's great at doing it.
dude was playing like he and I were just like the serious conversation. Dude was rolling with it. That dude's great, man. I
He's amazing.
I think, in fact, I think he needs to do like either a YouTube Shorts like series or something. Try anything once, and then just have like a review, like his review, the way he was handled, like the way he was breaking down, diagnosing my trust issues with burritos was spot on. Like he should have a PhD. Like I felt.
He honestly should. He's so funny. I think I don't know if you were there when we were talking about it, but we are talking about doing like a Buffy rewatch.
Oh wow,
Which,
the Slayer.
yes, which is actually an original watch for me. I've never seen it, which is crazy
Yeah.
because I love vampires and I've seen like every vampire thing out there.
Wait, are we talking the Christy Swanson movie, or are we talking the Sarah Michelle Gellar series?
We're talking about the series.
Okay, I have never gotten into it, so I might be down for as a first timer myself as well.
Yeah, so see, and he's a huge fan. So
Okay,
so I was like, this is perfect. We should do this space. I don't know. We have some thoughts about it, and I think it'll take off, honestly.
I think so too. As long as we then can go to Dollhouse, because that's also a Joss Whedon. Wasn't Buffy's Joss Whedon? I think,
I don't
or
know.
was
See,
it?
this is what I'm saying. I have no
Well,
idea.
because I think whoever did Dollhouse, because Dollhouse was the one where they program people to be different personalities. Elijah Dushku was the lead in that, and I think she plays somebody in the Buffy series. But anyways, yeah, that's totally cool. Rediscovering cool series like that, like
Yeah.
I. I've always my wife and I have always been kind of if something's popular. I don't want to get into hype,
Yes.
whatever. We didn't get into Breaking Bad till season 3, but when we went back and watched Breaking Bad, we're like, "This is the best! Oh, this is so cool!" And it's just like it's just like in that movie Ed TV. When it was over, we're like, what are we supposed to do now?
I know, it's wild. And you know what? I would love to know what Enneagram you and your wife are, because I do this same thing, and I think it has to do with my Enneagram.
What's an Enneagram?
Okay, so Enneagram is a personality type test. So
Okay.
there are 9 different Enneagrams, and you can be any one of them just based on how you operate. So I'm an Enneagram 4, which is what is known as the individualist. So it's like
Okay.
I always want to be different, right? Like that's like
Mhm.
it's my strong suit, but also my flaw. So like Enneagram is better than another because we all have like our strong points and we all have our flaws, right? Um and so, being an individualist, I really do not like to go along with the hype as well. I hate it.
Yeah.
Every time somebody is talking about something and I haven't already done it on my own, like in the beginning. If I've done it on
Yeah.
my own in the beginning and
Yeah.
then it's like blown up, I'm
Yeah.
with it.
It's like you saw the band first before they
Yeah.
got big. Yeah, then you're like, oh, you guys are a bunch of freeloaders.
I'm like, listen, 20 years ago, I
Yeah.
was.
I saw Dave Matthews at the Have a Nice Day Cafe in 1992.
Exactly. So I don't like going on trains, but then sometimes I miss out on things because I
Mhm.
haven't done that.
Yeah,
Which I think this could be one of them. So
absolutely. I've heard good things, but then here's what's funny is I get upset when people don't take my recommendations. Like I'll say, dude, you got to watch The Bear. You got to watch The Bear. It's such a good series. Have you watched The Bear yet? Oh, I'll get around to. Why haven't you watched The Bear? It's
I'm
like,
telling you, I do
yeah.
the same thing. I know, and it's like, trust me, if you haven't seen The Office, if you haven't seen Schitt's Creek, if
Mhm.
you haven't seen Parks and Rec, if you haven't seen, The Mindy Project, I'm going to be upset with you, and I'm going to tell you over and over and over, like you need to watch them. I have watched them so many times. I study the writing. I mean, I comedy write, so I look at and pick
Mhm.
apart all of the things, right? But it's such great writing. It's like, why aren't you watching it?
Quick question. What do you think? What do you like better, The Office or Parks and Rec?
I am partial to The Office because I watched The Office first. I watched The
Mhm.
Office like week to week when it was coming out. So again, it's just let's like age myself some more. Um, but yeah, I watched it like from the beginning, and I cannot tell you how many times I've watched that series. It's gross, you guys. It's gross.
Yeah.
Um, so to me, it has like a lot of nostalgia. I love the character arcs. I'm so into character development and character arcs that if I have a real attachment to any kind of character arc, I'm always going to be like, this is amazing. But Parks and Rec is awesome as well. And I mean, and it's, Greg Daniels again, doing that series. And it's like, uh, what's her name there? Oh my gosh, why am I blanking?
Leslie Nope.
Thank you. Yes, Leslie.
Or Burt,
She
I'm talking about Burt Macklin, FBI.
no,
And and
also
and
that.
what Snake what was her, what did April
Yeah, what's
what
her
was
name?
her code name? Snake Hole?
Something Snake Hole. Yeah,
Yeah.
Aubrey Plaza. Yeah, I don't know. That show is amazing too. Aziz
Yeah.
Ansari in that show is
Yep.
like just forget it.
Hey, treat yourself. Yeah.
Oh
Deb
my
and I say treat yourself all the time.
Yes, honestly. I mean, so that series, I won't say that The Office is better per se than that series, but I will say that The Office has a deeper place in my heart than that
I
series.
got you. Have you ever watched Community?
I have. Community is a great show as well.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Childish Gambino and
Yes. Yes.
and what's that other dude's name there? I can't remember. Why am I blanking on everybody?
Abed, there's Abed.
Abed, yeah, the dude that plays Abed.
Yeah.
Those two together for first of all, great character
Mhm.
pairing in that show. They're just amazing. Their handshakes, their thing, like all their stuff is so great. Yeah,
Joining
all the
Abed in the morning.
outros with the songs. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it was such a great like little like nuance thing that like came from that show. I love that show. Then I will tell you the pilot for that show is awesome. How
Mhm.
they introduce the characters in that pilot is actually something that I'm working on right now in my current pilot. Because I love the way that they kind of just like went through everybody right off the bat.
How important is like it seems like when when writing and developing either a show, a series, a movie script, what a book, whatever, how important is developing a three-dimensional character, like developing the character first and then letting their voice speak versus
Yeah.
trying to come up with one-liners here and there?
It's so funny that you say this because I just had an epiphany recently about character development in general. Now, I've always been a huge fan of making sure that I have very thorough character
Hmm.
development because I do think it lends so much, like you're saying, it's like instead of trying to figure out like what would they say here, it's like you already know.
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference when it comes to writing because it starts to just like the story just starts to come together itself and it starts to flow out of you like as you're going. Now, of course, take anything I say with a grain of salt because I haven't been published yet as like a TV writer, although don't put it past me.
Don't, it's anything can happen. Manifest
Yeah,
that.
I was like, it's coming. Trust me. I have a pilot right now that I've gotten incredibly good feedback on from submissions, and of course, like I can't do anything right now because of everything that's going on. So
Yeah.
there's that, and I'm working on another one that I think is going to I think is going to come out really well as well. I mean, I've been writing for almost 10 years, so it's steadfastly in these things, and so it's like, and I finally feel like I have something where I'm like, man, okay, this could actually do something. Um, but anyways, all that to say, take what I say with a grain of salt because there's many out there who know much more than I do. One being Brent Forrester, who used to be the showrunner for The Office at one point, worked on The Simpsons, has done
Hmm.
incredible projects, and I've taken classes with him. I'm actually currently taking a class with him right now, and
Very cool.
class. So like he kind of he does bring in new elements to the class like each time. And what it really does more than anything is it helps you to get through a pilot. Like you can write a pilot in 6 weeks with him if you
Hmm.
can actually go along and get it done. Now that is a huge feat because in the writing room, a pilot is probably going to get done in 2 to 3 weeks, but you're also dealing with an entire team of writers. You're not just one person writing,
Yeah.
right? You have all of the things that you need in order to do that. You are building this world and these characters from the ground up and getting done with a pilot in 6 weeks. That's a huge accomplishment. So if you can do that, you can even start writing by the end
Yeah.
of it. It's a huge accomplishment. So he does these classes so that you can get through that with him, and he does a lot of the same systems to help you understand like what to do and how to do it well. And just this past time, I don't know, like the character dev thing for me went to like the next level. And I have pages and pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of character dev for these people that I am creating for this new pilot. And it's like the story is just coming together. And
Hmm.
a couple weeks ago, I was in class with him and I was on a Zoom like this with him talking, and he asked me, "How is your character dev going?" And I was like, "I am so glad you asked me this.
Yes.
I wanted
Matter of fact.
yeah, I'm like, I wanted nothing more than to tell you how amazing things are going and how I've had this epiphany that in reality, when you have this together so well like this, the story just starts to write itself.
Yeah.
And he said to me, Amber, I'm so glad that that you've recognized this. I gotta tell you, there are people who have been professionally writing alongside me. Sometimes they've been writing for 10 to 12 years before they really understand the importance of character. And
Hmm.
he's like, so that's great. Like, if you're in a place where you're really getting that, that is going to be a major shift in the way that you write. And he is not wrong because the last couple weeks, just things have,
Flowed. Right?
yes.
You got in the zone. Stephen King said in one of he had a book on writing, which I highly recommend if you haven't read or listened to it. I listen on audio, but
Mhm.
he taught. Do you have it?
I was like wondering if I have it on my bookcase, but I think it's upstairs, but I do
Well,
have it.
so you know what I'm talking about, the part where he says if you show up for the muse will arrive. Like, or
Mhm.
I'm misquoting him, but basically, if you sit down to write, the muse will be there for you, and you just build that routine. And like the hardest part, like to do for me, and as a elementary school teacher, the hardest thing I ever had to with kids was getting them to write.
Mhm.
Once they're able to get their ideas out and get that rough draft, it's kind of like what Mark Twain said: writing's easy, just write everything and then cross out the parts you don't want, or cross out the that part. Is getting their thoughts on paper. um I feel like that's a huge part of the whole thing, is just getting just sitting down to do the work.
And it can be, and then it for some other people it might not be. And I
Mm-hmm.
think again, it's like when you listen to people talking about writing, it's lovely to hear, especially like
Mm-hmm.
really well-known writers and whatnot tell you about their processes and try to nitpick those pieces to see if things work for you. But in reality, it's like with anything. It's with content, it's with writing, it's with art, it's with whatever you're doing. Being a manager somewhere, right?
Yeah,
You can nitpick things that other people do and digest them and see if
true.
they work for you. And then what I think is like the best part about that is you're like wondering, okay, is this good? Does this feel good? If it does feel good, try it. If it doesn't work out, that's okay, because everybody does things in different ways. And the most important thing that you can be doing is doing what you're doing authentically and with
Yeah.
integrity. So if writing every day doesn't work, like for example, writing every day does not work for me.
Mm.
I go through periods where I have like massive inspiration and I sit down and I can sit down for like 9 hours straight and just go. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And then there's days where I'm like, there would not, I, I might be writing content, I might be writing copy, I might be writing, a product description on my website.
Yeah.
Like, and so I feel like I'm getting things like that, I'm getting the writing from there, but there's no way that I'm going to be able to like force a project out of me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, so it's like it's awesome. I think that some people can do that and they can structurally do that and it helps them. And then some people just have to go with the flow, and that's okay too. Like don't get caught up with people and what they provide for answers, because the answer isn't always necessarily the right answer.
I think that's good advice in life, like for anything. It's like because this parallels education, where with kids, we want to give them agency. What works for this, helping this child learn, doesn't always work for this child. What this teacher doesn't always match your style. I was a co-teacher with a teacher across the hall, Phyllis McCann, and she and I got on fantastic. We're really good close friends, but we had two totally different teaching styles. I was the almost like the Jack Black School of Rock, hey, that guy. Where she was very like, hey, we're here for business, we're getting business done. But
Yeah.
it worked for both of us, and both students loved our respective classes. And it was like, but if like I tried something that she does, if it wasn't authentic or natural, if it didn't really work for me, the kids could sense it, and they were like, what's going to Mr. Burton, this and that. And same thing when if she would try something, the same thing. And like there's this other teacher, bless her heart. I was known as the Minecraft teacher because I used
That sounds right.
I used Minecraft. Well, they have the education edition, and I would use Minecraft to teach some lessons. And I have a Mr. Creeper robot that I would have in the classroom. And one of the other teachers in another grade, she saw how Minecraft was taking off, and all the kids were loving it, and all, because kids are always walking around with the Minecraft lunchbox. And so she printed out these signs for her room, and it says Minecraft does his homework. And if you know anything about Minecraft's not a person. Minecraft's the name of the game. There's Steve, and there's now Alex. But at the time, there's Steve was the guy, but Minecraft was not the person. And I felt so bad because I told her, she was so proud of it, and I explained to her. And the problem is, one, you're clearly showing you don't really understand what the Minecraft was, and the kids are going to not only see that you don't know, they're going to see through your attempt to try to say, "Hey, look how cool am I?" It's kind of like the lady that has the Batman listens to his mother sign.
Mm-hmm.
If you know anything
Mm-hmm.
about Batman,
Yeah.
yeah, he became Batman because his mom isn't around anymore. That's kind of what happened.
Yeah,
But
it's I mean it's true. And in the way that it parallels education, it also parallels like mental health too, right?
mm-hmm.
Like you you can get so frustrated so quickly by trying to emulate something that somebody else is doing, because
Yes.
you think that it works.
Mm-hmm.
And you can get so down on yourself. I mean, I can't imagine. The one thing I don't like about social media is people trying to um
Be someone they're not.
yes, and also like the fact that like if I come across in a way that, works for me, I think about the people who are out there maybe trying to make it work for them and then thinking like, oh, it's not working for me. I'm just not good enough. I'm not worthy. Look,
Yeah.
it's not that. It's that I come across as who I am, point blank. So you cannot duplicate it. Like, you will not be able to duplicate it because I am just sharing like who I am, which some people will tell me is crazy on X, but I don't believe so. I think yes, Twitter 1.0 world maybe, because that's we were in a different space then. But now it's like, I mean, X is going to become an amalgamation of all these things where it's like it's going to be like Facebook, right? I mean, people that you're on Facebook with. You've
Mhm.
maybe met people that you're on Facebook with. I know I have. I have writing partners that I've met, and work with, consistently from that space. So it's just me, it's just me being me. And so I don't like the idea that like somebody might be out there thinking like, oh, this person is doing really well. She went from 0 to 5,000 people in 2 months. Maybe I'll just take her equation and put it towards my stuff,
Yeah.
do the same things, and it's going to work. And then it doesn't, because it's just like, I mean, I post like, for example, I post a lot of pictures of myself. Are you going to go post a lot of pictures of yourself like in your in your
Well,
posts?
some pictures.
Yes, maybe, right? But it's
That's
like
on my OnlyFans, so we'll talk.
super sneaky, like,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's like, in reality, it's like it's just not the same. And so I hate that people might
Mhm.
pull from that. And I think about like how that might have like long-term repercussions. And then so I try to make content and stuff around that too, like, just to make sure that people don't think like, don't try to be me. Or I'm always trying to talk about like, be authentic, have integrity, like
Yeah, be
these
you.
things that you need to do.
Be you. And like it took me 40 years to figure this out, but it's like because I spent a good portion of my life, my first 20 some odd years, trying to be somebody I thought people wanted me to be.
Same.
Because I was in sports, and I went to military college, and I thought I was going to be this cookie cutter. Look at me. But ignoring all my creative endeavors, ignoring all the stuff that really brought me joy, because I was trying to please others.
Mhm.
And the same kind of thing. I saw other people, and I said, "Oh, that's who I'm supposed to be. That's the person I need to try." But I kept it was like banging my head in the wall. I kept having hardship after hardship until I stopped and said, "All right, let's find out who I am." And I
Yeah.
think one of the things that people need to do is it's okay to like take something like something you do, like if somebody sees something that you're doing and they like a piece of something and try it, and
Yeah.
like try to incorporate it. Or like for example, like I two of my favorite media hosts, if you will. Joe Rogan, I love listening to his podcast, but also like Craig Ferguson when he was hosting the Late Late Show. I thought he was tremendous. He had totally taken that late night show genre and turned it on its head, and it was like
Mhm.
he was almost like the punk rock of late shows. But the way that both of them interview people, and now, granted, I'm doing a lot of talking right now, but I used to have a sign when I was started my podcast say "Shut up, Mr. Burden," because let the person you're interviewing talk and really get to know them. Don't give them the next question is why champagne as your
Yeah.
last name. That kind of thing. It's and I think people. I want to ask you. Let me turn around to a question so I can stop talking. Do you feel like it's people can truly, if they can truly be themselves, then the people they attract are genuine friends and genuine genuine people to interact versus trying to pretend to be somebody?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just gonna say I enjoy you talking, so please talk as much as you like.
Oh, don't get me started.
And Joe Rogan does a lot of talking too. So,
Yeah.
anyways, but he has a lot of thoughts. But yeah, I mean, yes, I think that that's actually absolutely the case, right? And it's like, and that's why I keep saying and kind of putting out like PSAs to people, like, look, if you want this space, and I know I keep going back to X, but in reality, it's just like, trust me, people who don't use it, when I say
Yeah.
it's going to become something so major in your life and you don't even know it yet. But when you're thinking about like that scenario, for example, or even just in real life, right?
Mhm.
If you're presenting yourself in an authentic way, the people that are supposed to gravitate towards you are going to gravitate towards you. The
Mhm.
people who maybe don't necessarily like the way you are going to stay away. And
Yeah.
that is just the nature of the beast, right? You can't be liked by everybody, and that's okay. And for me, I am one of those people that you either love me or you hate me. You know, like there's no real in between.
Yeah,
So
there's no.
yeah, there's no like, I kind of think she's okay.
She's
It's
all
like,
right.
yeah, it's usually like you really love me or you really don't. And I'm okay with either one because at the end of the day, like I'm going to live my life the way that I'm going to live my life. I feel that I try to do as much as I can to do right by everybody all the time. That stems from me being a little jerk when I was a kid. So it's like, and I know what it's like to be in that. You know, first and foremost, I was bullied for a really long time. I went to
Mm.
a private school. I was bullied all the way until I got into high school, like very severely. I mean, I can't imagine what it's like now for kids that have
Oh.
to go home and don't have any like shut off, you know, like it's like the cyber world. Because I got to tell you, there were times by the time I was in middle school that I really thought I wanted to like off myself, you know, like it was not a good time. So I can't imagine what that's like. I actually have a skincare program that I do where I provide free like consultations and product to bullied teens in my local area.
Oh wow.
And like, you know, because it's like obviously skin is like
Yeah,
definitely
like acne.
things
Shoot.
and people love to make fun of it even though it's not your fault. So
There's
no, that's
about 2 years where I turned into a walking pizza for like 2 years.
yeah.
And it was just like what happened? Like
Yeah.
and puberty is such a crazy time because it's like you're this. Oh, I think I'm gonna go watch Pokemon today, and the next thing you know, you're like, oh, hey, what? I got hair in places I don't know why, and why
Yeah,
is my voice like this, and what are these, and why do I stink? And yeah, it's like
yeah,
the most you develop in at the most insecure part of your life, and I can just imagine. I remember what like when I hit you when I was first making that transformation. Now it's like the trans stuff aside, it's like that it's that awkwardness, and now on top of that, there's cameras everywhere. Everyone's got a phone. Everyone's got something, and it's like if something happens at school when we were growing up, or when I was growing up, at least it was just like, okay, maybe tomorrow it's gonna be embarrassing at class.
yeah,
Now it's like you could be on TikTok.
exactly. And going viral. And so it's like, it's rough. I mean, I have a son who's 18. So, you know, and we homeschooled, I homeschooled him for high school because he's just doesn't is not a natural like school learner.
Hmm.
But he's done amazing things. I mean, he's become an
Yeah.
audio engineer. He learned coding. He started a business. Like he did so many things throughout high school that you just wouldn't have had a chance to do in a regular schooling environment.
Hmm.
Um, and he luckily has not had the experience that I had, you know, because I can't imagine having to deal with that. I always say it's really hard to be a teenager, but it's way harder to watch one grow up.
Yeah.
It is. And so, I mean, I feel for people who their children are bullied because it's like, I know what that's like personally for myself. And I know what it's like to watch a teenager grow up without that. And so yeah, I mean, it was like this time in my life where I was just like, ugh, you know, and then I got into high school and I was like, F this, I'm not taking any of this crap anymore. And I became a monster, like in all senses of the word, you know, towards other people, towards my parents. And my parents were super strict. My dad was, God rest his soul, a very strict Sicilian man. So you can just
Oh,
imagine, you know, I had to be home when the street lights were on, and
yep.
in Massachusetts in the winter, that's 4 o'clock. And I'm talking like when I was 17.
Yeah.
Talking when I was like 7. So you know, it was definitely like a strange thing to ride through. But what I noticed on the back end is after I came through all of that is that like as an adult, I wanted to do better. I wanted to be better, you know, I wanted to do
Hmm.
right by people. And so I really do try to like do that in all the things that I can because it's like especially for me, like I've walked through so many different things, you know, in the last 4 years alone. Like I've lost a son at 6 months
Oh.
pregnant. I've lost my dad. And it's like It's a lot,
Hmm.
it's a lot for one person to handle, and there's many, many other stories that I could tell, but I would probably have to be here for like 45 days. I should
Yeah,
probably write a book, honestly.
not a
Um,
bad idea.
I think at some point, maybe. I always feel like maybe I haven't gotten there yet, but who knows? It'll come to me. Um, but it's just like walking through all of that. It's like I know what I go through mentally every day
Hmm.
still. And I know what I have to put in place in order to make sure that I am prioritizing my mental health because all of the other things I do, I can't do any of those things if
Hmm.
mine is not doing what it needs to do, right? So if that means that I need to be in therapy, if that means that I need to be, doing certain routines, if that means that I need to have mantras or, I exercise all the time also because of my, how it gets your endorphins going and whatnot. All of those things will always come first because I can't do any of the other stuff without it. Um, and I'm not like willing to do the other stuff without it. And I think that everybody needs to remember to prioritize that their mental health first and foremost because there's really nothing else. I mean, you can keep doing the things, but again, going back to the authenticity of everything, it's like you're not going to come across the right way if you're not taking care of yourself first.
Yeah, I love the analogy. A previous guest used is it's like on the airplane. You've got to put your oxygen mask on first before you put
Mhm.
on anyone else's. And as a teacher, it's like teachers and parents and everybody. You try to be this super person for everybody,
Yeah.
but if you're not taking care of yourself, if you break down, then you can't be that person for everybody. And it's kind of like if you gotta go in for your oil change. You gotta maintain your engine, and or you're gonna break down. And I think too many people, they think it's selfish to take care, to like focus on yourself as well as, like, well, no, I got to be here for other people. Well, then, yeah, what happens if you work yourself into a heart attack or some health condition or mental condition, and then you're not there for them,
Mhm.
and it's so important. It is so important, and it's so amazing that you like going kind of tying into the Twitter Spaces now. We are in a time where speaking about mental health is a lot less stigmatized than it used to be. I mean, when I was growing up, it was, especially for guys, it was like, suck it up.
Oh,
What, you're crying?
oh yeah.
Just stare into the wind and cope, rather than actually like, oh, deal with these things and, just press it down. But it's so important to talk these things out and really just open up and have these conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, it's like I have an 18-year-old son, right? And I always have encouraged him to work through his feelings.
Hmm.
It works very differently for men, and I don't understand it because I'm not one, right? So it's like, but I try to guide him through that, and I think
Hmm.
like we've done a fairly good job of at least like getting him to like open up and think about things in a different way, or like try to attack challenges from a different way and
Yeah.
perspective with taking into consideration like what he's feeling and claiming it as valid, because we're all human. Doesn't matter what you are, we're all human, and it's like
Mhm.
you have innate feelings that really are valid no matter what. You could have a great life and something can still go wrong that bothers you, and it doesn't mean just because you have everything or you have like the great life that people think on paper.
Yeah.
um it doesn't matter where you are, or you could be really like in a tough spot and be dealing with things, right? It's like everybody is dealing with those feelings that they're working through, and everybody should be allowed to work through those feelings and to claim them as valid. It's so important for mothers, especially.
Mhm.
Mothers are like the worst culprits of this. I
Oh,
know,
big time.
where it's like we put everybody else before us. You know what I mean? We make sure we
They're
have
the
dinner.
last to sit at the dinner table. Yep.
Exactly. I'm like, we make sure everybody has their dinner, all their stuff is like done, right? Everybody's like, you know, clothes are set and the cleaning is happening and like the things. And I'm just like putting certain things. This is just my life in particular. So it's not
Yeah.
necessarily putting anything on anybody, but like, and even just parenting. even if you have small children, especially, you know what I mean? It's there's just a lot of time and effort that goes into that. And then also with, you know, adult children, you think that you get to a certain point. I always told everybody, I actually left, you know, my highly like paid travel job when I got pregnant with my son, first and foremost. And I took another job as a huge job in tech, as a head of a culture and education for a tech company. Um, and was building up programs there. I just didn't have to travel anymore. So I was like, oh, this will be good if, you know, when I have the baby and whatever. And obviously that didn't come to fruition. But um when, you know, when I was in those jobs, I really also was making a transition to be home for my son who was entering high school. Because to me, I had already said, you know, I had worked so many, I traveled for so many years. I had done so many things like as he was growing up. And thankfully I had a lot of help, you know, from family and whatnot that helped me to like get through those things with him.
Mhm.
Um, but I knew that when he was going into high school, I wanted to take a step back from all of that stuff so that I could be around more for him.
Mm.
Because I told everyone, as much as people were telling me, "Oh, but he's getting older. He won't need you as much." I was like,
Ooh,
"Let me
yeah.
tell you something. This is where he's going to need me the most." And
Mhm.
I am 150% glad that I made that decision because it was absolutely true. And I have done more to like nurture his mindset and his mental health in the last 4 years than I did all of his life prior.
Wow. Wow.
So um
What
so
made you okay, what made you decide homeschooling? I mean, was that part of it too?
yeah, you know, it's like for me my son is he's just like me in that like we both are neurodivergent, so it's
Mhm.
like, you know, there's a lot that goes into that in general. But we also are like both hands-on, very tactile,
Mhm.
like want to produce things and create things. And my son has always been like that, even more so than me. Like he's the kind of person that will take something apart just to put it back together again. Yeah, I'm like, and he's good at it. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy. And then, you know, and when it comes to like audio engineering and stuff, it's like he can hear sounds that like he'll be like, "You don't hear that?" He'll show me. You know, he makes beats and stuff and like does things and whatever.
Mhm.
And he'll be like, let's go listen to him in the Tesla because he wants to hear, you know, that like he wants to hear
Yeah.
what it sounds like in there. He listens down to like four different things and he's like, okay, let's go listen to the car now. And I'm like, okay, so I'll go in there and then he'll hear something and he'll go, "Do you hear that? Do you hear that?" And I'm like, "No." And it's like, "Come on, you don't hear that?" And he pulls it back and he'll try to play it again. And I'm like, "No." And then he'll have to like bring me up to his room, deconstruct all the layers of the thing, show me the part that he wants me to hear, put it all back together, and then go, "Did you hear that?" And I go, "Yeah, I heard that." You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's now that I hear it, I can't unhear it.
Yep.
And it's like, but he just has this like this mind that works in this like really interesting way of like deconstructing and reconstructing. And I just knew like he went to high school for 2 months. Um, and we were living in California still at the time. I went to high school for 2 months. It just wasn't working out. I was like, what is happening? He doesn't like this at all. He used to like school, like prior to that. He was like just liked going to school and being there and whatever, but it was just getting so depressing so quickly for him.
Yeah.
That I just made the decision to pull him out and I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this, but I'm gonna do this.
Yeah. Well,
And
you and a lot of other parents. I mean, homeschooling seems to be becoming a lot more normal. Like I want to say normal, but a lot more parents are doing that.
yeah,
One of the things that I'm constantly seeing with education is, and this kind of fits in with mental health, is like in when we were kids, it's like there was this box that all students needed to fit in, you know, and you had
mhm,
to graduate. And even gifted kids, the wicked smart kids, you were all supposed to be this one profile. But
yeah,
it's like you know, I feel like we need to really break apart and kind of like break apart and build back up. We need to rebuild the education system to be more conducive to students like your son, students that because I feel like I've always felt like neurodivergence comes with creativity.
Mhm.
Like a lot more creative people seem to be neurodivergent. It's kind of, and I think it comes from you see things differently from birth, and so you develop differently because of your different perspective on things, and
Mhm.
so things develop. I mean, there's a reason why Van Gogh cut off his ear. He was, there's that balance of creativity and seeing things differently, and I feel like there needs to be a lot more outlets for that in public education. It needs to be much more exploratory rather than all right, everybody needs to learn trigonometry,
Yeah.
like that kind of thing.
I love to hear you say that as a teacher because I absolutely agree with you. And I think, one of the harder challenges that when it comes to kind of revamping the antiquated school system is that many people who have been in the role of teacher for a long time just don't necessarily want to take the time to like learn new strategies
Mm-hmm.
or kind of look at things differently, new programs or whatever, right? Um, and then there's also like lots of state reasons and different weird things they do from like a federal
Oh,
perspective with
big time.
schooling too, where you're like, whoa, what? Like Common Core math. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
There's
I
a secret, yeah, there's a secret battle going on in the education system right now, and it's exactly, you just summed it up. There are teachers that have been in the teaching for a long time. There's a handful of teachers that probably do need to retire, but there's a lot of teachers that are struggling to keep up. But part of the problem is you have a top heavy bureaucracy. You have there's such a top heavy education system, both at the federal and the state level. And because you could go to any teacher in any state and you're going to hear similar complaints. My other podcast, the Educators Podcast, I've talked to teachers from all over the country and some in the UK, and it's remarkable how we're all feeling the same way. What's happening is you have they're trying to still teach, like they're trying to still teach a certain way, but they're also like the administration's trying to really take control over what is taught. The teachers get blamed for indoctrination, but the joke is always, if I was going to indoctrinate your kids, I'd indoctrinate them to turn their homework in and listen to my lecture. But the problem is that teachers do not have the autonomy that they need. Now,
Mhm.
granted, one or two teachers, if they're struggling to reach their kids, that's a actionable conversation to have with that specific teacher. But so much of us are being told not only how to teach, but we're being told how to teach by people that haven't been in the classroom or haven't been for some time. So,
Right.
and some teachers go a little rogue. Not saying any names, but if you know what works for your kids, that's what you do. And
Yeah.
it's sad because and I think a lot of it, I think some of it comes from fear of being sued. If we're controlling what the teachers are saying, they can't, blah blah blah. There's some agendas. There's
Mhm.
definitely some agendas, and a lot of it too is that we so much money goes to education from our government, yet it doesn't reach the schools. It
Right.
goes to these big salary people that, hey, look, we just saved money because we switched an entire curriculum from Google Classroom to Canvas, and it's like,
Right.
and
Which
what's that?
I was going to say, which is why, and so I don't want anybody to think that I'm bashing teachers in any way because
No.
that's not what I was trying to say. It's exactly what you're saying is that which is why people don't want to learn new programs because oftentimes the new programs are not beneficial.
Mm-mm.
They're not beneficial to what's going on. So when you potentially have something that could be beneficial to something that's going on, there are many teachers that are skeptical without knowing like what's happening with that program or how they could use it effectively or what it's going to look like in a year from now, when they
Yes.
roll out whatever it looks like on their end, on the like systems end, right?
Mm-hmm.
um that it causes a struggle. It causes people not to want to like move forward in those ways because they're like, we've done this before, we've been here before, right? It doesn't work like this. And I know the struggle as much as maybe in a different way because I worked in corporate education
Yeah.
for years. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like I was a senior national educator for Benefit Cosmetics. I wrote global content for that company.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Content that went on from, when I first started working there, they were close to like $1 billion as a company. And by the time I was done, they were at almost $2 billion. They had doubled their revenue. And we had created all kinds of programs that had actually completely shifted the way that people sold. We taught people how to sell. We taught people how to connect. Right, that made a difference in like the entire company. And so and trained thousands of estheticians all over the country and sent global content out to tens of thousands of them. So this is no small feat. And I know the politics that goes into the other side of it, and it operates in the same manner. And where you have like you come in and you see all these things and you're like, look, I'm making a difference, right? I'm giving you content that's making a difference that you did not have at one point. You did not think about things in this manner, and we've seen that it works. Now I have an idea for something else new that we can implement. Why am I being confronted with such a wall when I've already proven to you that it works, right? That these things that I'm doing work, but it's again because it's like someone somewhere down the line had an idea that worked incredibly well 14 years ago.
Yep.
And it was like their one claim to fame, maybe, and they don't want it to go away because they're like, I did that. It's like, look,
It's their comfort.
push the envelope here. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
there's ways that we can get around this, and there's ways that we can actually get what we're looking for and get the results that we want if we can just open our minds to different avenues. So it's like different but the same, so it's like I see it from that too. So yeah, I don't want anybody to think that I'm like bashing anybody in that, because I get it, trust me, as someone who was given many a program where I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. A lot of times it's repackaged. It's the new program, the same as the old program, just new stuff on it.
Yeah.
And what happened was we were incredibly unprepared to lock down schools when we did COVID. And our speaking of our school district specifically, a few of us thrived. Like for me, I thrived as a virtual teacher. I actually am a virtual teacher now, because on choice, but back then we were forced to do virtual teaching. But so many, they dropped the ball. They didn't have any support and ready for us. Teachers that had been relying on more hands-on materials had to relearn how to teach all of a sudden, and they didn't have the time or the training to do that, and we didn't have the support, and the curriculum they were still sending us old curriculum that was like built in mind with kids being face to face. Like we had to teach this fraction lesson they wanted us to teach involved everybody sharing a piece of Play-Doh, and it's like, well, they're at home. What? Huh? So what we did, what was remarkable is there was an assistant principal that put together all of the different grade levels that were teaching virtual on the same email chain, and we had created this sharing network where for example, like I developed a whole slideshow on Jamestown that was interactive and the kids liked it. I would share that with all the other fourth grade teachers, and then they would use it, and then someone would send something that they did that works great for virtual manipulatives. And then we also had contact information, so those teachers that were scared to death had people that they could contact to walk them through how to manage this stuff. But it was just dumped on the teachers, and a lot of times these things get dumped on the teachers, and then kind of like building the plane in the air. Halfway through the year, they switched platforms, and they had to redo this. They had to redo the way that the videos and stuff worked, because they weren't prepared. This was right when Adobe was no longer supported. Adobe Flash was no longer supported by Chrome.
Yeah.
But all the materials they gave us was Adobe Flash, and they had nothing to replace it until after Adobe stopped with Flash, and so we had to redo. It was a mess, and I'm getting into the weeds there, but I think the wall sometimes with teachers is exactly that. We've seen stuff before, and you have somebody like, it may be a really cool concept, but so few people that understand it. And
Mm-hmm.
when they send it down, the yes people that just want to get promoted, they'll kind of won't really understand it, but say, hey, this is what we're doing. I
Yeah.
have no idea what it is, but this is what we're doing, and it's the best thing since sliced bread. So figure it out. And we're like, okay, kind of thing. So, anyways, I didn't mean to get off on that, but
Good.
there's definitely some authenticity that needs to come back. We need to shift our focus on what education's all about. But I think and school safety is an issue too. More and more, there's struggles with behavior management in schools, and like we had a teacher shot by her 6-year-old student, and they're blaming everybody but him. It's like they're and again, we want to understand childhood trauma. We want to understand uh, we want to understand why kids make these decisions, but I think we're starting to turn a blind eye to the fact that kids need structure too.
Oh yeah.
And I think we're kind of we're focused on half the story with child development. And now, granted, it's kind of like compared to where we were, where it was like all you need is a butt whooping and that'll straighten out the kids. We've come so far from that,
Mm-hmm.
but we're just now learning about autism, learning about ADHD, learning about these things and their sources. But we're also forgetting that kids are smarter than we give them credit for. They
Mm-hmm.
crave structure, and it's
Mm-hmm.
the old adage: you need to be strong. If you aren't strong enough to stand up to me, then how can you stand up for me? And I think that happens. I think we're missing that in society, that we're we're almost coddling kids and lying to them, that and telling them that society and the world is going to change to your whims. And then they become adults and it's like, oh, I'm getting my teeth kicked in.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. I'll tell you that right now. It's the world is a wild place, right? And so, and they do need structure, and they do crave structure because I think from having raised a child that structure helps their mental health be in a safe place.
Yes.
It helps them know there are boundaries, there are rules, right? And there are things that my parent or parents put into place to keep me safe.
Mm-hmm.
And to keep me going, like for me, my son went to bed at 7 o'clock every night until he was in ninth grade. And the reason for that is because he was the type of person that needed so much sleep.
Mm-hmm.
So much. If you did not have him in bed by that time, he was like just getting erratic, and B, it would be like either the next day he would get up at the crack of dawn, because he would wake up at like 5 or 6 in the morning
Mm-hmm.
forever, right? He did this forever. He's been
Yeah.
doing this. He still does this now. You know what I mean? Like he's 18
Yeah.
and he still gets up at like the crack of dawn. Last summer, he had a job landscaping that he had to be at for 6 a.m. and it was no problem because he's been the kind of person that's always gotten up in the morning. So either he would get up same time in the morning and then be a nightmare the next day
Yeah.
because he's tired, or he would end up like oversleeping and then we'd have problems with whatever. So it was like, no, he had to have that structure. And he actually like got to a point where he just didn't even mind. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he wanted to go.
There's no protesting. Yeah.
Yeah, when he was like 13 years old, he was just like, all right, I'm going to bed. Like, you know what I mean? And then finally, like in high school, it was like, okay, like you can try to like figure some things out.
Well,
Uh,
sleep is so important though, especially self-esteem.
yeah.
If you're already entering like high school, or if whatever it is, or wherever, just in society, if you're on top of that grumpy and there's no Starbucks around, you're definitely gonna have a bad day.
Yeah, for sure. And so it's like it's small stuff like that that you don't realize like maybe makes
Mm-hmm.
a huge difference, but it does. I mean, and again, it's like when you sleep well, you feel better. Like your mental health is in a better space. You know what I mean? Like you're just like more clear-headed, and you want to enjoy the things that you're doing versus like just complaining about how you're tired.
It's like, I'm tired, mom. A
Yeah.
lot of, well, I see a lot of kids today though, like there's, and it's, I feel for the parents because there's not always really like the parents' fault. It's the parents' responsibility, but not their fault sometimes, because we're in a society where a lot of situations, whether they're single parent or they're both parents are working, or there's all kinds of stuff going on. And I've had kids where they'll go to bed, but they're on their iPad, or they're playing around till like 2, 3 in the morning, sometimes 4 in the morning, and then they're falling asleep in my class. And it's like, what do you do? It's like, no, it's like you're killing yourself, and their self-esteem and everything is just shattered as well, in addition to just not learning, because
Yeah,
you
I mean,
can't
you know what you do? You take the cords and all the things out of the room.
yes,
I
exactly,
like
shut
I
off the Wi-Fi.
not kidding. We got to a point where we were taking when he was getting older, and then it was like, in that mid period. I think I want to say probably about like 10 to 12. There was like the rough time where it was just like he would at one point he had an extra cord for his computer that I didn't know about.
Oh,
And then I finally found out about that. It's like, so it's like you just as a parent, you have to be on them. You have to keep putting it into place, and you have to be real with them, like of like, look, I'm doing this so that you are in a good spot. Like, do you understand that? If it's like every time it's like, wow, if you loved me, you wouldn't be like if I loved you, I would do the things that make sense for you to have and give you the structure so that you can operate as a normal human being and not be frustrated with everything. You know what I mean? And it's like
yeah.
the more and more you say that to kids, the more and more they get it. I can't tell you how many times my son comes to me and tells me, just how grateful he is for me
Oh,
as a
that's cool.
parent, and like how I'm the best mom like he could have ever had, and every single card he ever writes to me, it's all the same stuff. And it's like, look, was I a little tough? Like, yeah, in
Hmm.
some ways, right? But I also wasn't the person that had like a million rules either. Like, I wasn't
Yeah.
like, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't. It was like, look, don't lie to me.
Yeah.
Don't lose my trust, right? Like, do what you
Hmm.
say you're going to do and follow these couple things. And maybe these couple things feel that way to you because you're a kid, but it's like, but they're all there for your safety and for your structure and for you to be in a good spot mentally.
How important is that to explain to your kids not just what the rules are, but why the rules exist?
I personally think it's probably one of the most important things you can
Yeah.
do. I don't know if you've ever read that book Start with the Why by Simon Sinek.
Our administrators have, because we've had extensive training on finding our whys and
Yes.
teaching. So yeah.
Okay. So, that was something that I read in the corporate educational world, and I, did trainings and different things on that. We actually used like the golden circle of like, to explain how and write and how and why to write content and how and why to train people and teach people.
I'm sorry, the comedy writer, when you said the golden circle, the comedy writer just got a bunch of jokes. I won't, not appropriate for this podcast.
Yeah, you can always talk about that in our space. Um, so yeah, so
You're saying the
the
golden circle. Go on.
yeah, yeah. So that is like, we like use that for lots of different things. And when you look at everything, when you look at, I don't care what it is, when you look at everything,
Mhm.
understanding and knowing the why is what gets the buy-in from somebody.
Yeah.
So if you can explain the why to your children, if you can explain the why to your audience, if you can explain the why to your employees, if you can explain the why to your partner, if you can explain the why, to in any given circumstance,
Yeah.
it's going to help you get buy-in. And buy-in is what you need in order to get anything effectively done. So when it comes to kids, like they need to know those things. And I think that is an area where, I'm no parenting expert. Again, take everything I say with a grain of salt because I'm just one weirdo lady, in America somewhere. But it's like, but I do think, just from talking to other parents and seeing things that have happened, even with my own siblings and whatnot, I do think it's an area of opportunity that a lot of people don't give time to because they feel like it's like, why do you need to know? I mean, even us as kids, it's just like you'd be like, but why? And your
Yeah.
parent was always like, because I said so,
Oh, yes. Those
right?
horrible
And
words.
I hated that. I hated like, no, I actually want to know the why. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, and that's just the way that my brain works. So I always was I always was explaining those things to my son as he was like growing up because I wanted him to know why it was. And then I'd be like, "Do you understand what I'm saying? Tell me, help me understand like what you're hearing from that."
Yeah.
And so it's like, and then he would tell me, and sometimes we'd have to be like, okay, but do you see like, and then sometimes he would understand. And so it's like, but that piece of that is so important because it truly is. It's like it's how you get anybody to believe in your mission is by
Yeah.
explaining the why to them.
That works in every setting too. Like if you're a manager, if you're or you're like a leader on a team, that if you got to explain the why, they got
Hmm.
to understand. Hey, this is why you do that. Because a
Hmm.
lot of times it's just you're just following orders, or you're just oh that you're mommy's being mean to me. That she's taking away my iPad. Yeah, but I think finding your why truly like it truly does help whenever I like if you're doing a podcast, if you're writing a script, if you're doing a why you're doing it. Conversely, if you can't answer the why, then you're not doing what you should be doing. You know what I mean?
Truly. Like if you can't figure out like why you're doing something that you're doing, then you should just stop doing it.
Yeah.
Because it's like I mean, once you've given the thought to like trying to figure it out, if you really can't figure it out, honestly, you should not be spending your time doing that thing. Because every single thing that we do, even like if something is so simple as going to the gym. I was just talking about this in a space the other day, right? It's like
Hmm.
people were asking, well, what do you do? Like, how do you get in that thing when your mindset starts getting at you? And I'm like, look, the most important thing you can do for yourself from a gym perspective is when you start going to the gym, ask yourself what it is that you want out of the gym, right?
Hmm.
And now, all the time, first and foremost, people are going to be like, oh, I want to look a certain way for the most part, right? Um, that's like surface stuff. Why is it that you really want to go to the gym? Right. For me, it's like it's for my mental health. It's for my overall health. I want longevity out of my life. Like,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? Like, there's all these deeper connections to different things that have gone on in my life that I've seen happen where I'm like, I think I need to start taking care of myself. So when I first started doing all of this, I wrote all of that stuff down because when those days come to you where you're like, oh, I just don't want to go to the gym.
Yeah.
I'm so tired. It sucks. It's cold out. It's dark. It's whatever.
Yeah. I'd roll
It's
over.
day, like whatever it is, like whenever you go, I don't know. For those people that go to the gym at night, I don't know how you do it. I could never do that. I gotta get out of the way, but whatever, t-shirt.
Yeah.
So it's like, but every time those things come up, then you can go back to that and you can look at your why again and be like, oh, that is true. I do want that. All right, let me go.
Yeah.
Um, so even stuff as simple as that, like so silly as like going in the gym, but it's like it really is like if you don't know like what you're doing something for, the likelihood of you continuing to do it on a long-term basis and actually really having any kind of progress or like productive piece coming out of it
Hmm.
is probably pretty,
Yeah. It's hard. It's going to be really hard to maintain.
yeah.
Yeah, because you're gonna have those days, whether
Yeah.
it's the gym, whether it's a mental gym, whatever long term task that you're setting. Um, and I'm on the fat teacher program again. COVID was like throwing me into the briar patch. Like I got to sit around and be like, oh, I don't have to go anywhere. Now I'm like, oh, look at me, I'm out of shape. I got to get back into it. But it's you've got to remember why you're doing it, and
Mhm.
you got to do it for you too. I mean, I
Right.
think a lot of times people like, well, I want to look good for people, or I want to, do this or that. Like, no, you need to do it for health. You're going to feel so much better. I've also found that you got to sometimes trick your body. Like, you got to try this. If you're struggling to go to the gym, just get dressed and put your sneakers on before your brain gets a chance to realize what you're doing,
Yep.
because that way that's half the battle. If you've already got your shoes on, and then all you have to do is walk out the door and just go to the gym, even if you just are going to sit there.
Yep.
Just go there, because once you're there, you're like, all right, well, I might as well,
Might as well do it.
you might
Yeah.
as well, yeah,
It's so funny that you say that because like I say that all the time, even with like washing your face. People
yeah,
are like, I just can't get in the habit of doing my skincare every day. I'm like, look, you know what? Get one of those headbands, put it on. Like
yep,
as soon as you put it on and you're like all set to go, I'm telling you, there's something that it triggers you. Like you're like, all right, I'm already like halfway there. You haven't
yep,
even really started, but in your mind, it's like you're already halfway. It's half the battle, like you're saying. So it's like it is. It's small things like that. Like put your sneakers on. Just go and sit there. You know what I
yeah.
mean? In your
I
cup.
didn't. I didn't want to shave this morning, but I was like, I put the shaving cream on before I could even think about it, and I was like, all right, well, I got to get it off. What am I gonna do? Wipe it off? No, I better shave. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And there's just something about that. It's like you once you put yourself in that position where you got to do it, you might as
Mhm.
well, and that's sometimes you have to do that. Um, you know, skincare is important.
It
And I
is.
think it's important to all of us. And I'm so glad that there is a line of skincare products for middle aged skin. Can you tell this is totally not a sponsorship promo at this time, not at all. But please tell us a little bit about your product, STC. Um, I'll edit. I'll say it right and edit it now.
You're so funny. It's Ethist. Thank you.
ETHYST.
Um,
ETHYST. Yes,
yeah,
ETHYST.
it's Ethist. It's actually so it's the back half of amethyst. I actually had a trademark fall through right before
Hmm,
my dad passed away, and I needed a new name for my skincare line. And my dad's birthstone was amethyst,
cool.
and that's how I came up with Ethist.
That's awesome.
Because amethyst does, out of all the stones, it actually has the most skin benefits. Like, there's lots of great things about it. And obviously, it's an attribute to my dad. And then I also really loved how it sounded like ethical, ethics. Like it's
ETHYST.
like, and
ETHYST.
yeah, and so yeah, so that's the name of the skincare line. Thank you for even plugging it. You totally don't have to do that. That's not why I'm here at all. Um, but yeah, it's a skincare that is gluten free, paraben free, cruelty free, vegan, fragrance free, and made in the U.S. And it combats both hormonal issues and aging simultaneously, which is something that's almost unheard of in the skincare industry.
Wow.
Typically, what we see is we see aging products are too heavy for those dealing with hormonal issues, which, by the way, is basically anyone in their mid 20s all the way on up to their 70s, that we just keep dealing with hormonal shifts and different things that go on in our bodies. So those are too heavy for that, and they actually cause problems there. And then hormonal treatments are too aggressive and typically cause aging. So there's not really too much on the market that does both. Not really anything in all of my research that does exactly what we do. Um, but it's also it's based in your skin's microbiome. So what your skin is naturally producing, your hyaluronic acids, your vitamin C's of the world, phospholipids, omega 3s, all those things are naturally living in your skin. They propagate all your systems, like your skin oil process, your skin
Hmm.
hydration process, your collagen process. That's just how it naturally works, right? And those things slow down over time. Our production gets less and all of that. And so what the product does is it actually just gives it back. So it gives it back to the skin, the things that it needs in order to function properly. So
Hmm.
people, like, for example, think that they're going to put collagen on their face and then they're going to get collagen, but that's not how it works.
No.
You need like ceramides and phospholipids and vitamin C and all those things have to come together, and then it helps you to produce and stimulate collagen. And so that's what the product does. It really just takes all of the things that are naturally living in your skin's microbiome. It helps to reduce all of the inflammation in your skin, which is what's
That's
causing all
huge.
of the
Yeah.
problems. And then it helps to give back to your skin so that your functions start to work in a proper manner. And when everything is balanced and working properly, then you get good skin on the surface. And it does seem, people think skincare is like really froofy. I got to tell you, I'm here to tell you that it's not.
Mm-mm.
I've been studying skin science for a very long time. I've been a licensed esthetician and a clinical herbalist for almost 10 years. I have done tons of studies on this stuff. I
Hmm.
actually got involved with it myself because I had cystic acne after I gave birth to my son, and I never had problems with my skin before. It was
Hmm.
all hormonal. I went to like every esthetician, every dermatologist. Like no one seemed to be able to help me, so I became an esthetician my damn self.
Good for
started
you.
to started to do all kinds of like experiments and stuff, and just read. I read so many studies. It's stupid. I'm such a nerd. Like I'm on PubMed constantly looking at, ingredient studies, different things that they've done on the skin's microbiome. I've been talking about it forever before it became a buzzword this year. Glad to see it as a buzzword because it just goes to show you that I've been telling you the truth this whole time.
Yeah,
So
validation.
yeah, exactly. It's like, yes. So in the last 14 months, we've sold out of this product over 6 times across the country.
Wow.
Um, and people have nothing but good things to say about it, 5-star reviews. So it's like, it really is more though than just like a froofy, like, hey, I want to look young. You know what I mean? Like I'm 40, and a lot of people don't think that. People say that to me all the time. And it definitely has to do with me taking care of my skin for
Yeah.
sure,
Hmm.
but it's not the only thing that you get from skincare. Youth isn't the only thing that like I am striving to have. It's actually health, because what happens with our skin, especially on our face, or for a lot of women, especially like on our décolleté area, these areas are exposed constantly. They're exposed to the elements. They're exposed to free radicals, to toxins, to the sun, to viruses, to all kinds of things that are on the outside of us. And what happens when you don't take care of your skin that's exposed? So for all of us, our
Hmm.
face, no matter who we are, right?
Hmm.
Um, it's always exposed. And if you don't take care of that, what happens is you end up getting microchannels in your skin that allow all of these things into your body. Your
Hmm.
skin's barrier is like this very, very thin layer of skin that's on the external surface of your skin. It's so tiny, but it is so remarkable. If you want to read about it, you could go on my website. You can
Yes.
you can read a blog about it. It's so it's so crazy how this tiny, very, very thin layer of skin all throughout our body helps to protect us from everything. But when we don't protect this part of our body, it's the first to break down, it's the first to degrade,
Mm.
and it's the first to let all of these things in. So it's really actually from a health perspective that you should be doing some kind of even super basic skincare routine, because it will help you to be more healthy.
I think we forget too that the skin is an organ, right? I mean,
Yes,
skin
it
is
does.
an organ,
Yeah.
and if that's breaking down, and it sounds and it's weird too because like when I was younger, of course, when I was in my 20s, I was invincible. I'd go get a sunburn and I'd be fine the next day. My skin's peeling, whatever. But now it's like now I'm feeling it. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll I used to be I could jump off a roof and land on my feet and be fine. Now I twist my ankle getting out of bed. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, what's going on? But yeah, it's more than just the looks. It's I think that you feel healthier.
Yeah.
You feel better about yourself, not just the skin part, but like it helps you feel a lot better. It gets a lot of toxins out. You mentioned inflammation. It's so interesting now that it's that sugar in diet is such a huge. Of course, I love sugar,
Oh
but
my
like
god.
like, but it's like that's one of the leading causes of inflammation, and it's like that inflammation seems to be what really kills people, what really gets people.
Inflammation, yeah, is what
Mhm,
is the culprit of everything.
mhm,
So all those things that you see on the surface, like your rosaceas, your acnes, your hyperpigmentations, the lines and the aging, all of that stuff is a result of some form of inflammation that has
mhm,
caused these things to happen. And then of course with an amalgamation of other things that are you're dealing with, or imbalances and whatnot. But inflammation is a huge culprit for all kinds of stuff. So yeah,
yeah,
it's definitely something you want to limit happening in your body as much as possible. And I also love how you said too, like I don't it was like something you just said triggered a thought about routines, but just even the routine of having like a skincare routine that you're actually paying attention to mentally can be a great space for you. A
yeah,
lot of people, I tell people all the time to just slow down and like take a second to actually like experience your skincare, right? Because
mhm,
it's something that people feel like they have to do. But it should be something that you feel like you want to do, because it gives you, first of all, everybody wants something for nothing. Doing a 5-minute skincare routine is only 0.003% of your day. Yes, I have done the math. And,
Yep.
and that is, and it gives you so much. It is effectively like one of the things that you can do for nothing that gives you so much back in return.
Mhm.
You get huge ROI on this. So that's one thing.
It's kind of
But
like brushing your teeth. If you just sit there and go, okay, it's done, versus taking the time to do each tooth, and yeah.
yes, truly, it is. And so it's like such a small amount of your day, but it's also a space that can actually help you to just like mentally clear things too. I know for me, one of the things that, when I was, after I had my loss of my son, and one of the things that was like near and dear to me was my skincare routine.
Mhm.
Because I would put myself in a place where it was just me for like 5 minutes to be able to think through whatever I wanted to think through, and just the like cleansing and like the
Wow, metaphoric, huh?
yeah, truly. And
Yeah.
it's actually funny that you say that, because if you look at my skincare line, you'll see that the names of all of the products really are along the lines of the same kind of energy stuff. It's like our cleanser is Clarity Cleanse.
Mm.
Energy Cleanse is my exfoliant. Daily Ritual is your moisturizer, right? So it's like it's all of
Yeah.
these. Awakening is the toner. It's all of these things that have to do with that, because truly, this is where I got the thought from. Is that when I was doing my skincare in those moments, it was like the actual form of like cleansing just helped
Mhm.
me to feel like things were like being freed from me, and then giving back to myself, like putting those like moisturizers on, putting my serums on, different stuff like that. It felt like I was giving myself like a gift of silence, of time, of space, of energy, and it's just like, so there's so much that goes into it. It's like people think it's so froofy on the surface, and I get it, but it's really not.
It's very helpful. I've been trying, and only in the last couple of years, and it's I'm not always successful. I try to spend at least a couple minutes in the morning before I start anything. And it's tough just to kind of
Mhm,
do that. Not I'm not sitting there with my chakras and my incense going like like this, but like I try to just meditate, and a little bit of religion. I try to pray a little bit, and I try to just kind of get my mindset. And
mhm,
if you're not religious, it didn't have to be a prayer. It could be just kind of go through being grateful for things, thinking about thinking about your day, thinking about your why, really just
mhm,
doing that. And it sounds like what's interesting too is to keep my mind from going places. If you're doing a task while you're doing that, like for example your skincare routine, it's you have a routine and you're thinking while you're doing it, and it kind of becomes part of your routine. And it's so helpful to like realign your brain,
yeah,
because you're not in that lizard brain mentality where it's like, okay, I gotta get my coffee and I gotta get this and I gotta do this and I gotta be on the road and I gotta go blah, blah, blah. Before you know it, you've gone half the day and you haven't really stopped to really align yourself with stuff.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
it's true. And that's where it's like
mhm,
just like a thing like a skincare routine is, it's like because I do all the same stuff, right? I try to get like my mindset straight. I'm huge into meditation.
mhm.
Anytime I'm feeling stress at all, yoga and meditation are like some of my major go-tos, and it really does help me to clear my mind. Prayer helps me to clear my mind. It's like all of these things. So I do a lot of the same things as you, and I wouldn't forego those things for like another routine, but it's just almost like it's like another way to give back to yourself through the day. So it's like
Yeah,
it's finding those like little things that really help you, like a skincare routine that actually helps you from a health standpoint and all of these other things, but using it in a way where you can get even more out of it, for your mental health, by just like clearing that space for yourself,
yeah.
which I think people don't do enough of.
Mhm. So when are you coming out with the ayahuasca shampoo and the the Zen conditioner?
You know?
Whoa, this shampoo is opening my third eye, man.
Yeah, it's so wild, dude.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
Actually, we need to somehow get Paul Rudd to be a spokesman for your thing. Can we imagine getting Paul
Oh
Rudd?
my gosh.
Hi,
No. You know who I'd really love to be a spokesperson for my skincare line, and this is in all seriousness, Martha Stewart.
Oh
If
wow,
if I could have Martha
and
Stewart,
Snoop.
yeah, oh my gosh, and Snoop, yes. If I could have the Martha Stewart Snoop combo come in and like do their skin, I swear, if anybody knows Martha Stewart and Snoop,
Yo, for shizzle, this skincare, it's legit. Yo, that I don't know. I'm just
honestly,
terrible at my
I
Snoop.
mean, they could be
Yeah.
whatever. They could do what they could do their thing. They could hang out doing whatever and just like, and I just think they would love it. I think they would love the
Yep.
experience. And I love Martha Stewart, honestly. She is so she's had a wild story. She's gone through the ringer in a lot of ways.
Yep.
And she still remains to be a graceful and poised woman who is authentic and allows
Yep.
herself to be vulnerable and does not care, that she's made mistakes, that she, does what she wants. I mean, she's
Hmm.
like, it's amazing to see. And honestly, she should be. I mean, what is she, like 80 years old?
Close to that, I think so.
I
Yeah.
think she just turned 80. And it's like, I mean, good for her. Like, live out all of your days in the exact way that you want.
And I love that she and Snoop are like really close too, though. I think
Hey,
that
I'm like, this is the best thing ever. That's what I'm
yeah.
saying. You see what she's done? Like, she's done these incredible things. She's like had all this stuff. She's become this icon, and now she's like hanging out with Snoop. And I just think it's like, this is where I want to be when I'm 80.
Yes, yes, exactly. Amen to that. Absolutely. You know, it's interesting too because kind of coming full circle back to the social media thing, but in general, cancel culture. And some people say cancel culture doesn't exist. Some people say it does. And there's all these different arguments. But when somebody is like, like Martha Stewart,
Mhm.
they bounce back. They, people, it seems like it's becoming hard. It's hard for people to forgive,
Mhm.
especially when you don't know the whole story. Everything from you've got Kevin Spacey, who is now, I guess, acquitted of all his stuff, but there's still some drama around him. There's, you have people acquitted of different things. Do you feel like it's like human nature to be like, once you burn me, or is it more like when we put somebody on a pedestal, they fall further and then it's hard for us to forgive? Or, and then conversely, if you're somebody that's canceled, how do you bounce back, and where do your thoughts on all of that, the cancel culture and finding forgiveness and
You
all that
know,
jazz?
I am not a fan of cancel culture, and in all things,
Mhm.
because people are people. They're humans. They make mistakes. They're gonna do things. It is what it is. Do some people make egregious mistakes? Yeah, absolutely. Right. And I am not condoning what they do, and I'm not saying that
Mhm.
it's good. Um, and I'm not saying that they should just be like welcomed back in with open arms, right? Like right away. But I think that, humans are humans and we all make mistakes. And if anybody thinks that they haven't made a mistake that is not nice or not good on behalf of somebody else, then I would encourage you to highly reevaluate, because every single person has done that.
Yeah.
So, and that's how we grow, right? Is how we grow is like we make mistakes and then we are like, all right, we need to change that about ourselves. That was not good. Now, if you're making mistakes and you're not doing those things, that's
Yeah.
also something to reevaluate, right? You can't just like go about doing what's what. I think I think in reality though, when it comes to like forgiveness, I think it's very hard for people to forgive other people. I've definitely been in that situation myself where people have egregiously affected my life, and
Mhm.
I've found myself in a state where it's like, ooh, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know if I want to do this. But what I will say about forgiveness is that it's not actually an act for somebody else, it's an act for ourselves. When
Very
we
true.
forgive, we are releasing for ourselves the hatred, the anger,
Mhm.
the fear, all of the things that go along with whatever happened. And if we don't forgive, we're harboring all those things, which actually is affecting us more than it's affecting anybody else.
Very true.
So I get why it's hard because do you know why? because we want to know the why. We want to
Yeah.
know why. We want,
Yes.
why did you do this to me? Right? Why did you, like, it's like, I'm telling you, that is really what it is. It's like that innate need to know the why. And I'm going to tell you, there have been people that have burned me and done me wrong, and I still to this day, 20 years later, don't know why, and I
Hmm.
never will. And so, if you want to hold on to that, I can tell you that there's a probability that you'll never find out what that why is,
Yeah.
anyways. And all you're doing is harboring that hatred and anger and all of that stuff in your own heart. So it's definitely best to forgive, but I also understand, like, why people have a hard time doing it, because it's like you have to break through that really innate need to know why, to get to the other side to even be able to begin to do that. Now, where I get really confused is when it has to do with people who, like, aren't really a big part of our lives.
Yeah.
So, like, when we're talking like celebrities, et cetera, et cetera, and again,
Hmm.
when people are making egregious actions towards other people, we're talking, sexual assault and like different
Yeah.
things, yeah, things that people are doing to children, like, that is absolutely unacceptable on all levels. um on the flip side of the ticket, redemption is possible for anybody.
Hmm.
So it's like, as humans, we should want to see each other as human first. We should, I just wrote a post about this too,
Hmm.
last night actually, but it's like we should want to see each other as human first. We should want to understand that every single one of us is experiencing the human condition,
Yeah.
and there's nothing we can really do about that except for have grace for one another. Um but it's really hard to do, and it's really hard to get to. I think though that if we could see people as human first, we would have a major shift in the way the world works.
Be a lot less divisive. Yeah.
It would
With.
be a lot less divisive. It would also be a place where people really knew themselves.
Hmm.
Like, I think about even just like AI and stuff and all of the things that it's bringing to us, all the tech advances that we're going to have, and I'm here for it. I'm sorry. I can't wait. I'm so excited. I think so many great things are going to come from it. There's going to be cures to things. There's going to be ways to find, you're going to be able to find ways for autistic people to communicate in ways that are going to completely change their lives. There's going to be all kinds of things happening. I really look at this next era like it's like the Enlightenment, the Renaissance, the Industrial Revolution, and
Yeah.
the internet boom all rolled into one. And it's going
Yep.
to be like, and a veil is going to like shatter.
And the
Um,
people that are afraid of it, I always go back to the fact that there were people that were afraid when the steam engine, when the locomotive was invented. They were afraid if the human body goes faster than 40 miles an hour, your brain explodes.
mhm.
So yeah, we're
Mhm.
it's going to be
We're
more
in a
good than bad.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's the same thing. Like, it's like, should you go back and turn the internet off because of some of the bad things that happen with the
Yeah.
internet? Like, I mean, there's been a lot of good that's happened. I've seen it all unroll in my own life.
Don't throw out the baby with the digital bathwater.
Exactly. So it's like, we're moving into this era that I think one of the biggest and coolest things that's going to come out of it eventually is that a lot of humans grow up thinking, what am I going to be? What am I going to do with my life? I've seen this firsthand,
Hmm.
with my teenager who's gotten very stressed out at points within the last 4 years about, like, what am I going to do with my life? How am I going to be? What am I It is like, it's all these things that like go through our heads, but it's because we don't really know ourselves as humans first. We know ourselves as, like, we need to contribute to society, we need to get a job, we need to do the thing,
Yeah.
we need to be something. And then that's how we become human, is like by becoming a CTO at a tech company.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Or that's how we become human, by becoming a teacher. Or
Making
that's how,
six figures, having 2.3 kids in a
yes,
suburban house with a white picket fence. Yeah.
exactly. And it can be anything that you want. It could be, whatever it is that you're like, this is what I have to be. Look, what you should have to be more than anything, first and foremost, is a human, and the human that you were meant to be, that you innately are, based
Hmm.
on the things that you love. Now, if you could grow in that way as a human first before having to think about what you need to give to society, you would learn all the things that you need to know about yourself
Hmm.
to then get to a place where you're doing something amazing and you want to share it with society.
Yes.
And
Amen. Right there.
that's
Yes.
so different.
Oh my god. And it's taken me 48 years, like not 48, but 40 years to get there.
Yeah.
Because so you exactly right. You when you try to live to someone else's standard or what you think somebody else wants you to be or what you think society wants you to be without first exploring what you want, then you're going to be unhappy. You will find happiness by because there's a reason why we as humans are pulled to certain things. Why you're pulled to a certain what have you, and just you got to explore it. And it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean like, hey, I'm going to be a comic book writer. You can't. It's going to require hard work, but you're going to love doing it because it's now part. It's who you are. It's part of your passion, and it's your why.
Right.
Oh man.
Right. And it's like, and think about like when, all of this tech stuff comes in and makes life so much easier and things
Mhm.
so much faster, and you don't have to deal with all the like ticky tack stuff of the day. How much more space and freedom you're going to have to work on those things and to find those things.
As long as the space isn't eaten up by this, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah.
That's what we gotta
Although,
be careful of.
although it's like, you know what? There's also a lot of connection and
Yeah.
collaboration and creation that can happen here too. So it's like somebody else was talking about that the other day, like, talking about their kids and screen time and all this stuff. And I said, I used to worry about that so much. As my son was growing up, I'd be like, oh, you're on those screens all the time. I like sounded like the old lady parent that I didn't want to be. Um, and now I realize, like, as he's becoming an adult, it's like, man, all of those things helped him so much, like, to learn different things, to get like what he wanted and needed, to actually like delve into the like topics and subjects that he was interested in, to help to, sharpen his mind, and then to encourage conversation on our part. Because thankfully, my son is very open with me, so it's like we've had so many conversations on things like where it's like he's watched videos and he's like, hey, tell me about this thing. I saw this thing on this video that said X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, okay, cool. And like, we can have an entire, theological, philosophical, like wild conversation about all kinds of things that help him just to become a better human and a better person, and to be able to dig into himself in the way that he needs to be, to gain his own experience, to make his own choices that are educated. So there's a lot of good that can come out of it too. You know what I mean? It's a balance. Oh, I can't hear you.
You know what? My microphone just muted all of a sudden.
I figured.
So it's kind of like, it's kind of like the internet technology. It's a tool.
Mhm.
They invented. We're going to ban hammers because one person uses it wrong. It's like it's how you use the internet, and I think a lot of that is that information literacy, being a critical thinker too. I think is important.
Oh yeah.
We've lost. I feel like I don't know if you agree. I feel like there's a tremendous lack of trust in mainstream media, where we've been lied to in so many different ways on so many different things. But look at what Twitter has done for the people in Maui. The truth of they're going through is getting out. But you're able to like kind of figure things out yourself and say, okay, like let me look at this. Okay, I can see part of that, but that seems like BS. Let me say, oh, this looks good, but this is part of it. You can make those decisions. You can connect and communicate with people.
Hmm.
I met my wife online, not through a dating service, but we actually were co-hosts on an internet radio show. It was like pre-podcast internet radio, and we just really hit it off. We started talking, and then we ended up when we met, and it just was like meant to be.
That's it.
And that was just one of those crazy things. But like I think again, it comes back to that baby with the bathwater thing. Is a lot of the problems we have with technology are really human problems. Like the
Mhm.
technology is not the problem. It's how the humans are using it. And I think, like you said, if we really take a look at how we are as human beings and who we are, we I think we'll find that we have a lot more in common than we don't have in common. I think a lot of like race issues and sex issues and all these different divisive things. And they they go away. I don't know. Have you heard of Daryl Davis?
No.
Daryl Davis was a jazz musician, and he now does TED Talks about this very thing. But back in I think the 60s, 70s, he would tour with James Brown, or he would go he would play all these different things, and it, he it started when he was driving to a gig with another musician who was a white guy who just so happened to be part of the KKK, and Daryl Davis is a black man, and the two of them were driving to a gig, and it was a long trip, and there were several hours involved, and they just started talking, and of course, me after a while, the KKK, the white guy, started talking to Daryl Davis about, well, we're the superior. You started talking all the literature stuff. By the end of the trip, the conversation, instead of getting into an argument or anything, Daryl Davis listened to him, asked him questions, he made his points. By the end of that trip, he convinced the guy to not only give up the KKK, but he turned in his robe and his hood. And because he realized that he's talking to a black man and all these things, it just getting him to talk about it, he started to see the problems in his own thought process, and he quit. And to this day, Daryl Davis has now convinced over 200 Klansmen to give up the Klans and turn in their robes. And this isn't just a race thing for me. I think this is in general. It illustrates how important communication and authentic listening is, because I think so much of what we do in society, we want to be heard, but we don't take the time to listen. Like I've got members of my family that are Trump, MAGA, blah, blah, blah. And I've got members of my family who are, vote blue no matter who. And I hear people, and they have all these beliefs, but they don't take the time to listen to the other person. Neither one of them are stupid. Neither one of them are dummies. They're smart people. They're just not taking the time to understand the other person's take and understand the commonalities. I think we all in life want the same thing. We may have different ideas how to get to it. And I think the worst thing we can do is write somebody off because they disagree with us on something. I mean, imagine disagreeing with me about kiwi on pineapple on pizza.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm like, honestly, oh God, I'm so thrown off by the pizza.
I'm sorry.
Honestly, I think what's interesting about all of that and about people's opinions is that the challenge with people's opinions is that a lot of the time people have opinions based on deeply embedded experiences that they've had in their life, on traumas that they've had in their life, on indoctrination that they've had in their life, in relationships and things that have gone sour, and like all of these like experiences.
A bad burrito.
Yeah, see, all of these experiences that are really deeply embedded, and it almost feels like inside of their DNA. And therefore, like when they start to hear like something that is like opposing to the stance that they have on something, they believe that they're being attacked solely on their like identity, like on their DNA.
Yes.
And it's really sad because it's there does need to be better, more open, respectful discourse, because with those things, as you just conveyed and displayed through that story, is sometimes, not all the times, but sometimes it can make a difference in your mind and in your heart when you hear someone else's experience and truly understand it for what it is, versus just being so shut down that you don't want to hear it because you feel like what you have to say is right. So open and respectful discourse and debate and whatnot is absolutely necessary at this point, overall, globally. With everything, it's funny. I find myself to be a little bit of a conundrum of a person in a lot of ways.
Aren't we all?
I really, truly, it's like it's so crazy. I think there's like a lot of things that you can know about me that you'd be like, how are you that, but also that, and that's where it's like, isn't that the funniest thing about humans, that we are multifaceted and we have all these different things that have happened to us and or that we just are or innately like feel. that help us to be these like well-rounded beings that have lots of different views on lots of different things. I personally am myself very centrist in the way that I like look at all kinds of things. I don't prescribe to like one party or another per se. I don't even like politics, as you know.
Yeah. No. By the way, no politics
Yeah, I'm like no
in the
politics.
random
No.
zone. Yeah.
I am not.
In the
I'm just not a
champagne room. We should call it the champagne room.
Yeah, honestly, yes, we should.
It's
Oh my god, that's amazing.
no politics in the champagne
No
room.
politics in the champagne room.
There it is.
That is, I knew I did this podcast for something.
Right? Yeah. So there's some reason for it. There it is.
Yeah, but it's like it's interesting, and so I find myself from that perspective listening to people on both sides of the aisle say things when I can, because most of the time people are just screaming at one another, and I'm like, I'm not here for that.
Yeah.
But when someone really wants to like explain their position, friends, I have friends just like the same thing as you,
Yeah.
all different kinds of friends who believe different things, and I love them all equally because I think as people I like them first and foremost, and that's like what's important to me. And then it's interesting to hear like what they have to say and why they think that. But what I have noticed more than anything is that they think those things because of something that's happened to them.
Yep. Yep.
Because of something that they've lived through or they've dealt with or they've seen or that has personally affected them. And so those things, those thought processes are deeply embedded in each one of us, and are based on like where we sit in life with certain things because of like how we've perceived them, how we've experienced them. So even when you do have open, respectful discourse, and I think that it will come. I think actually the X platform is already doing a lot of that, where I hear people talking about different things in different spaces. And don't get me wrong, it's not all of them because some of them are real heated.
Let the champagne room lead the way.
Yes, exactly. But like it's when that does happen, you will find that you'll get hearts and minds that are changed, and then you'll find that you don't. You know what I mean? And that's okay too. I think that we need to just all understand that no matter what way people are thinking, even if we don't condone it, even if we think it's like absolutely egregious that somebody would think that, you have to understand that it's coming from a deeply rooted place that unfortunately probably isn't something that's so easily untangled.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it too is, do you feel like people tend to get emotionally attached or find an identity in a thought and an idea, and then when that idea or thought or philosophy is challenged, you're challenging who they are. Like, one of the things, it parallels teaching students the scientific method. And I always found that that's such a vital thing to learn, is that when you come up with a hypothesis and then you test your hypothesis and the data indicates that your hypothesis is wrong, you are not wrong. That doesn't make you a bad scientist. And kids struggle with that. Like at first, we had a kid that he thought that the red magnets were more powerful than the green ones. And other kids in the class, when he said that, scoffed at him. And I said, no, let's test this hypothesis. And we tested it, and it came back that it wasn't, the color had nothing to do with the magnet thing. But it was a great illustration of how your hypothesis can be wrong. It doesn't make you wrong. And I think that if we can really get to that in society, where you might believe something, but if new data comes along and shows you something else, you're not so attached to that as your identity that it doesn't challenge who you are, that you don't have to now change who you are because of that.
Yeah, and I find that's where it gets really hard because, like you said, it's like it's emotional. It feels like identity, and that's because it's tied to those embedded experiences, and those are real, right? So for people, like they feel that that's the feeling. But it's funny that you say about science specifically, because I was just talking in a space earlier right before I got on this with you, and we were talking about that, and I was saying, it's crazy because the best scientists are the ones like that are like, look, 9.9 times out of 10 this happens, but what happens that 0.1 time?
Yeah, exactly.
And they're always looking for the loophole, right? I mean, that's what science is based on. People, it's funny that people think science sits in such fact now, because I'm like, that was like never
For some, it's becoming a religion. You know, I was always the one that 4 out of 5 dentists agree. I'm like, what about that 5th dentist? What about him? You know,
Exactly. Like that
yeah,
fifth dentist
or
is
her.
important. And that's really like what it is. Like, when you look at science, it's like they're always looking for the loophole. You're always trying to find what's going on. I mean, we've even seen changes in the laws of physics as of recent, right? Which those are long standing laws that we've had in place. But it's like we're finding new information, and we
Yeah,
shouldn't shun the new information in exchange for like, well, this is what I think it is. Because then
yeah,
we're losing on progress. We're lacking in that area. It just like doesn't make any sense. So it's
yeah. Galileo was locked in the tower for decades. You know, so and he turns out he was right.
yeah, you know what I'm saying? And that's where it's just like, and then the funnier part is that there's biological systems within our body that make us want to have control over
Hmm.
things and in our psyche. So now we're like fighting internally on ourselves too. So it's like you've got these like embedded experiences that are giving us ideologies that, potentially with new data could be like combustible, but because we want to hold on to them so tightly because biologically, like, and in psychologically, we're like, no, it's such a mess. You know
we
what I'm saying? So
we
it's
humans are basket cases, I tell
it's
you.
a mess. That's why, like, at the end of the day, it's like if we can just see each other as humans first and respect one another for like whatever it is that we want to believe or see or think. Obviously within the confines of safety and all of that. But it's like if we could just do that, we would be in a much better place.
Absolutely, and maybe let Twitter X and the Champagne Room lead the way. Let's move forward with that.
I love it.
Amber, we're coming up on 2 hours. I could
It's
do another
crazy.
2 hours with you. Shoot, I mean, it's you and I are just like we're like, yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you. Yeah, good stuff.
Totally.
But any first of all, social media stuff. Obviously, Twitter. Where can we find you? Amber
Yeah.
Champagne on Twitter. Any
Yeah.
other things you want to plug? Obviously, I'm gonna say it right this time. Estith.
Ethist.
ETHYST. Why is this so hard for me? I'm practicing. I'll get it right next time. ETHYST.
You did
ETHYST.
beautiful.
ETHYST. 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 All right. That's such a cool name, though.
Thank you.
Any more than a fortune cookie? Any final thoughts, words of wisdom to the masses listening to us?
You know, I think just be kind to one another. Show people grace, as much as you can. I think we're about to come up and the next year is going to be hot. For
Yes.
lots of reasons. And
Yup.
I think we're going to be living in a very different place in a year from now. And then I think in the next 2 to 5, we're really going to see some major seismic shifts in things. So if you can do anything, get up each day with a grateful heart, be kind to other people, show people grace, show yourself grace, and try to look at humans as they're human first. Um, I'll say it forever. I think that honestly is what I'd like to leave you with more than anything. And yeah, you can find me on X. It's Champagne's Brain. The handle is what you get, so you get what's in my brain.
Yeah, be prepared.
Be prepared.
But as a I will as a not only a member but also a client of the of Champagne's Brain. No, you're fantastic. You're one of the good people out there, and you are a positive reason to keep a Twitter account. And I really appreciate. I'm really glad to have gotten to know you already. So this is, I think we are in for strap yourselves in. We're in for a couple fun years.
Yeah.
But it's good to find a fellow seeker of truth seekers and mindfulness seeker and human to get ready for this fun year coming up.
Yeah, thank you. Same to you. And honestly, if you ever want me to come back on, I'm happy to. I honestly could talk to you for more hours too. But yeah,
Yeah,
I'm sure I'll see you in this space.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, thank you so much on behalf of Amber Champagne. Go make sure you check out the Champagne Room on X Twitter. This has been Aaron, aka Mind Runner. Have a great one. Be true to yourself. Be cool with yourself. Be cool with others. Love one another. And you are awesome. Catch new episodes of Mental Health Mondays every Monday morning at 7 a.m. Start your week off with a smile and some inspiration.